And as always, I hope to finish this this lesson tonight. So let's go ahead and begin with a prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you so much for another beautiful day you've given us. We're thankful for the safe arrival of everyone here tonight. We have some who are out traveling. We pray that you'll keep them safe. We have those that are unwell that would normally be with us, and we pray your hand of healing would be upon them. Please help us to understand the things that we're looking at tonight and to benefit from the knowledge of your will and your way and of your plan to bring our Savior, Jesus Christ, into the world. We love you so much, and we thank you for him. And again, we pray your presence with us. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So question 1 is, who arrived at Sodom? And if we look at chapter 18 and verse 22, we see that there were the men that turned away and went towards Sodom. And who met them and what was he doing? But before we answer that, I want to spend just a little bit of time here talking about the location of the cities of the plain. So in Genesis chapter 14, when there's this war that's going on from the kings of the north coming down into this area of Canaan, there's 5 cities that are mentioned there in verse 2. These kings went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, who is at this point in time not named. And Bela, we are told there in that text, is the original name of Zoar. And this battle that they were going to fight is going to be in the valley of Siddim, which in this text says the Dead Sea Valley. It wasn't the Dead Sea yet, but by the time that Moses is writing this and the people who are receiving it originally, it was the Dead Sea. In fact, if you go back to chapter 13 and verse 10, when Lot looked and down into this valley towards Zoar, was well watered like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt that was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, which we're about to look at here in this text right now. So archaeologically, none of these cities had been found 100 years ago. In the 1920s, they still didn't know exactly where they were. And in fact, they were looking for them in the northern portion, northern region of the Dead Sea. And there's a lot of opinions about where they ought to be. From what you can read about in the Bible, they cannot be at the north end of the Dead Sea. So I've got 3 passages of scripture that I want to give out, actually 2. Ezekiel 16:46, and somebody else can look at Deuteronomy 34, verses 1 through 3. So who has Ezekiel 16:46? Okay, David? Okay, so let me just stop you there before you get going. This is a prophecy of Ezekiel to Jerusalem. Okay, so when he says your elder sister, he's talking about Jerusalem's elder sister. Okay, go ahead.
Who dwells with her daughters to the north of you, and your younger sister who dwells to the south of you is Sodom and her daughters. Okay, so
here's Jerusalem. To the north is Samaria, and to the south is Sodom. And if you can picture in your mind, and you won't have to in just a minute because I'll have a map up there, but Jerusalem just almost at the very top, is it right at the top of the Dead Sea, up in that northern part. Okay, who has Deuteronomy 34, 1 through 3? Okay, Ross?
Now Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, and all Naphtali and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, and the Negev and the plain in the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zoar.
Okay, so here's Moses on Nebo, just right before he dies. God's going to let him see the entirety of the promised land. And so he's on Mount Nebo, which is on the eastern side of the Jordan River, right towards the top of the Dead Sea. And on Mount Nebo is a peak, and the peak on Mount Nebo is Pisgah. I mean, that's how I understand it. So he's facing west. So give me this. Do you still have it open there, Ross? So the first place he saw was.
Just a sec, I actually did. Here we go.
The land of Gilead as far as Dan.
Okay, so if the Jordan River is going up here and it's going up to Mount Hermon, then what he's seeing is north. There's Gilead, and then Dan and Naphtali. Okay, and so we're swinging south next. Ephraim and Manasseh is right there in the middle. And then we come to Judah, which is straight across. And then right near to him is
The Negev and Jericho,
okay, and so we're moving on south,
and then all the way down to Zoar.
all the way down to Zoar. So it's like a panoramic view that Moses has, north to south. And when he gets as far south as he can get, what does he say? What's the last city? Zoar, which is one of the 5 cities of the plain, one of those 5 kings. So the Bible doesn't support the fact that Zoar and Gomorrah and Sodom would be north. It would be to the south. So here is the first text. Samaria is to the north, then Jerusalem and your sister Sodom. And I have a question mark there. I think it's probably pretty close to where that is there. And then, so this is the whole land. And you can see again, let me see if I can find that. So he saw Gilead, and then he comes all the way down here to Ephraim, and the Negev, and all the way down to Zoar, which is right down here. So the Bible and other archaeological sources seem to say that it's to the south. There's one other thing, and this is the Madaba map. If you watch the video that Tim recommended, this is one of those things that's from there. This is an ancient church that was built just southeast of Nebo. And this is this mosaic map that they uncovered as they're digging down into the bottom of this church. And it's the oldest map of Palestine. It was put together in 500 AD. And right up in this section here, I think it's right here, and I've got it enlarged for you. Oops, I went the wrong direction. Is this, you can't hardly see it here, but I will read it for you because I can only see it from here. But it says Zora, Z-O-O-R-A, or in Greek, Z-O-O-Ra-A, Alpha. And this is at the southern end of the Dead Sea. So archaeologically, biblically, all of these cities have to be at the south. And so then these are 2 maps that I think are pretty accurate: Sodom, Gomorrah, Zoar, Admah, and Zeboim. And here's another one that pretty much has the same: Sodom, Gomorrah, Zoar, Admah, and Zeboim. All right, so back to our question. We're immediately told in chapter 19 and chapter 18 and verse 2, he saw 3 men. And when we get to chapter 19 and verse 22, also in chapter 18 says it's 2 men. Who are they in chapter 19 and verse 1? 2 what? 2 angels. So what we figured would have, and could have figured, because I'm sure you'd already read Genesis 19 at some point in your life, so you knew that these 2 men were angels. And so they arrived in Sodom. And where's Lot?
Sodom.
Thank you very much. Where in Sodom? At the gate. He's sitting in the gate. And he got up to meet them. Okay? It's like, where did she kiss you? Right on the cheek, instead of the place. So, question 2, describe Lot's hospitality, and why do you think he was so insistent? So first of all, let me ask you, why is he sitting in the gate? Why do you think he's sitting in the gate? Ross?
I think often sitting in the gate was like where kind of the higher up people in the city, like the men, who were respected and stuff, would sit there
Okay.
and maybe make judgments
Right.
or decisions or business or things like that would happen there. So it's kind of like a meeting place for a lot of the higher social
Right.
status.
And when we were over in Israel, when you have the gate, you've got these rooms right on the other side. That's in the gate, where there are meeting rooms, and there are places where you can go by and do business. It's not like sitting in the doorway here, when it says sitting in the gate. Though in this particular case, I think Lot is just sitting there at the entrance. He's not in one of these rooms. And again, we've talked about it before, when he first left Abraham, he was in the area of Sodom. He moved toward God. Now he's living in Sodom. And so somebody turn to 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 7 and 8. And here, Randy, is another one of our strange intersections between our class on Sunday morning and our class on Wednesday night. Do you want to read that for me? Sure. 2 Peter 2, 7 and 8.
Delivered righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the filthy conduct of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them tormented his righteous soul from day to day, seeing and hearing their lawless deeds.
Okay, so, and why are these angels here from the previous chapter?
To bring judgment.
To bring judgment, to see if the outcry is as bad as it seems. And if it is, then they're going to destroy the city. So we have, first of all, in chapter 18, we find out that it's just Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of plain, are so wicked that God's going to judge them and destroy them. And then in 2 Peter, we have Lot, who is a righteous person, but the wickedness around him vexes his soul. He's distressed. And it appears to me that everybody, as you read the rest of the chapter, which I think you probably did, anybody that comes into town is what?
Wicked.
Taken advantage of.
No, they're not wicked.
The people that are coming to visit, you mean?
Yeah.
They could be victims.
Yes, they could be victims. They are in distress. They are in grave danger, as we're going to see later on. So why is Lot sitting in the gate?
Protection?
To protect them, to bring them to his home, to give them safety. And so he's protecting innocent travelers by taking them home, and he offers to take them to their home. He lays out the red carpet. I'll wash your feet, and then you can leave when? Early the next morning, in and out. Okay, and all night long you can be at my house. And what do the angels say? No, what are we going to do? We're going to stay in the city square, because why are they there? To see how bad it is. And you can't find out any better than just sitting in the city square. But what does Lot do? He insists that they come home with him. Okay? And they agree. Which answers the second question. He knows they're in danger. Question comes into my mind. So Lot, if it's so bad here, why are you staying here? Maybe this is his ministry. He's there to protect people. He's being a righteous influence. So question 3, summarize the scene between Lot and the men of the city in 19 verses 4 through 9. Because in this section, we're going to see how wicked and depraved the men of the city are that the angels have come to discover. Yes, Ross.
One quick thing on that first section, like Lot's hospitality is very parallel to Abraham's.
Yes.
Because he's watching, just like Abraham was watching from his tent, and he goes out and he begs them to come, and he gives them food and drink and all that kind of thing. So like that's a really good commendation of Lot, because
has been passed on to him.
Right.
Yeah. The only difference that I see is that Abraham looked up and there were the men already. He didn't see them coming. But we know these guys have walked there. They've come there for a purpose. So what time of day is it when we open this section? Yeah, it's before they went to bed, though. So I'm guessing 9 o'clock. That fits with my lifestyle. I don't know if it fits with yours or not. And so what happened before they went to bed? Which men?
The young and the old, both the young and old men of Sodom.
Okay, all of the men of the city, young and old, are surrounding the house. And what do? They call to Lot and say what?
They're asking him where the men are.
Where's these men that just came into town? And their intent is very clear. The NIV states that we want to have sex with them. Some of your translations will say we want to know them or we want to have relations with them, but those are kind of euphemistic. The Hebrew word is very much involved with sexual activity, which is why homosexuality is called sodomy. It comes from this. So you're seeing right now, just from the very opening here, how depraved they were. And so what did Lot do? He goes out to do what? Yeah, to reason with them. But he goes out, and as he goes out, what does he do? He shuts the door. Okay, and I'm sure that the people on the inside were told to lock the door behind him or bolt it or whatever. And so he says, no, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Okay, so he's friendly. He's not confrontive, but he also judges them. It's righteous judgment. What are they? They're wanting to do something wicked, and he says, don't do this wicked thing. And apparently those words didn't deter their desire. So Lot goes a little bit further, and what does he do?
He offers his 2 daughters.
He offers his 2 virgin daughters. And listen, for all of us, that's difficult to understand. It's difficult to even fathom. It's unfathomable. Did he see gang rape as being less wicked than homosexuality on guests in his home? I have no idea. I'm still dumbfounded. You see the same thing, though. We don't turn there. I'll give you the text in Judges, the 19th chapter, in verse 24, with this man and the place he was staying and his concubine being sent out.
So Dan,
Yes.
do you think that Lot was protecting guests in his home?
Yes.
Or he knew they were angels and he's protecting?
No, I don't think he knows they're angels yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Abraham did. I think he recognized Yahweh. But I don't think that Lot has a clue of that. I think, and again, I don't care what culture you're in, or it just doesn't make sense to me. There's not any way I can get my mind around him doing that. And so he offers that to them, and there's no way to justify that. And so the men are not interested in that. And they say, get out of our way. They're going to have their way with these men. And they viewed Lot in this particular context as 2 things: a foreigner, because he's not really a citizen there, and as a judge against them. And so they threatened him with worse. We'll do to you worse than what we were going to do to those men under your roof. And they pushed him all the way back to the door, and it seems like they would have broken the door to get inside. That's at the end of verse 9. And so how did these angels intervene?
Reached out and brought him in.
Okay, so they reached out. He's at the door. He's by the crush of the men. They grab Lot, in reality, physically saving him. They bring him back inside and close the door. Then what they do? Okay, so they struck the men with blindness. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it was just a big flash of light. I don't know if he struck them with blindness like Saul, who will become Paul, did to Elymas. You'll be blind for a season. it says that he struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness so that they could not find the door. And actually the literal Hebrew is, they grew weary of trying to find the door. They couldn't find it. So they got tired of looking. And perhaps there was their real blindness overcame their blind lust that they were suffering under before. And the blindness also could be, instead of just kind of physical blindness or totally physical blindness, it could be just total confusion. And I'll just give you this text again. 2 Corinthians, not again, I'll give it to you. We're not going to read it. 2 Kings chapter 6 and verse 18, where the army is struck with blindness and Elisha just takes them right into the capital city, and then all of a sudden they can see again. But they could see a little bit because he was leading them. So I'm not sure how that works. Anyway, the danger is averted because these men can't see or can't think enough to do what they were intending to do. Okay, any questions so far? Yes?
With the daughters, that never made sense to me either. It's just, like you, I can't get my head wrapped around it. But do you think possibly he may have known, he may have been confident enough that they were going to refuse, that he offered them as a dodge anyway, just to keep them away from the
I have no idea.
Huh?
I have no idea. If I did that as a dodge, I'm sure hoping my daughters aren't at the door listening. 'Cause they're gonna trust me, as my dad used to say, as far as I can throw a chimney by the smoke. And it's again, I don't want to put my culture on their culture, but I know that in many cases women were considered chattel. They were property. And so I have no idea. I have no idea. Debbie?
It said, my little Bible note says that it's ancient hospitality, that under all circumstances you protect your
Right.
guests.
That it's the top thing. Yeah, Ross?
And just kind of, again, like drawing parallels with other parts of Genesis, it kind of reminds me of Noah and his son, and just like that was just not okay, or like, you know, again, we don't know what the whole the daughters of men and the sons of God, but that was wrong, sexual relations, and just all of that. It just shows the evil, and I think it reflects poorly on Lot. We just saw a positive thing. We should mirror Lot and Abraham's hospitality and
Right.
protection of their guests, but he hasn't been unaffected by living
No.
with these people, and he like this is not an okay solution to
Right,
this problem.
right.
So I think it really shows that your life choices do impact
Right.
you, and maybe in one area of your life, like hospitality, you're a very upstanding person, but you can be compromised by the people that you live around,
Right.
and it's a big warning on
Yeah.
where do you choose to focus,
Yeah.
where do you choose to live,
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. God's final judgment of him was he's righteous in 2 Peter. So that Abraham was blameless, but it doesn't mean he didn't ever make mistakes. So yes, Randy?
In verse 7, as Lot is pleading with them, he does say, don't do so wickedly.
Right.
And so that's what
Right?
set them off.
Right.
Because they didn't want to be told that what they were doing was wicked.
Right. And that still applies today. You know, and that's why I made the point. He did judge them. And he judged what their actions were. He's not saying you're going to hell. He's just saying what you're doing right here is wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. I just think of Abraham going to Egypt, and his big concern was they'll kill me for my wife if they know that she's my wife.
Right.
And yet the king of Egypt at the time was righteous in,
Right.
in that he didn't want to do
Right.
wrong according to Abraham or Sarah or God.
Right.
And here you have men, like I just see, like, it's easy to think, well, people were evil back then
Right.
in that land. Well, no, there were good people in that
There
land.
were.
And there were very evil people in that
Right.
land.
Well, and you got Abimelech in a couple chapters, the same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing's going to happen again. So what instructions did they give Lot, and what did they do? So first of all, the verdict is in. These cities are wicked, and they're going to be judged, destroyed because of their wickedness. There's not enough righteous people, and what was the deal? 10. So there's not 10 righteous people here, but at the same time, God is not going to sweep away the righteous with the wicked. Okay, and that's what we see happening here. And listen, Abraham only saw one possibility, and that is you find 10 righteous people, and what happens to the city? The whole city is spared. What's God's solution? Find the righteous people and do what with them? Get them out of there and destroy the city. Abraham didn't see that possibility. So these two men / angels told Lot, or asked him what?
If he had any other son-in-laws, sons, daughters in that place,
Or anyone else who belongs to you, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry against his people is so great, he has sent us to destroy it. Which reminds me, when he's telling them to flee, remember John the Baptist in Matthew chapter 3 and verse 7 and Luke chapter 3 and verse 7, when the Pharisees or the Jews came out and he said, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Well, Lot and his family are being warned to flee from the wrath to come right here. And listen, that's what we do when we preach the gospel as well. So Lot did that. This all happened before they went to bed. They haven't been to bed yet. We're still before they went to bed. And so what does Lot spend, it appears, most of the night trying to do? Convince his family that this place is going to be destroyed. He warned his sons-in-law. He didn't talk to any daughters, it doesn't say. And listen, in that culture, if you think about Joseph and Mary, they are said to be married. They're said to be husband and wife, but they are just betrothed. So there's not been any sexual relationship there yet. And so Mary would have still been a virgin, and these two daughters here would still be virgins because that marriage hadn't been consummated. The Hebrew, some of your translations will indicate that there were other daughters that were already married that are there. And the Hebrew is just too ambiguous to make that decision, though I think when I first began studying this, I was thinking, no, it's just these two daughters and their betrothed husbands. But I'll give you some more information in just a minute. In either case, what was the reaction of the sons-in-law? Yeah, you got to be kidding. You're joking. That can't happen. In fact, they laughed, which is exactly the same word you read in Genesis 17 and Genesis 18 about Abraham and Sarah. And I think that is probably closer to, we haven't got there yet, but in Genesis chapter 21 and verse 19, you'll see Ishmael mocking Isaac. It's again the same word. So in either case, the sons-in-law thought he was joking. And they didn't believe Lot. They didn't believe his threat. I would guess it's probably closer to mocking. And so his warning to them was worthless. Though he seemed to try for some time, because the next verse says, where are we in this timeline? Yeah, just before dawn. Dawn was coming. So most of the night has been spent. Question 6, what further directions did the angels give, and what does Lot's attitude seem to be in verses 15 through 22? What's the first word? Up. My translation says hurry. So there is some urgency here. And what's he tell them to do?
take your wife and 2 daughters who are here.
Okay. So that's the thing that gets me. Take your wife and your daughters who are here, which seems to imply that there's other daughters, outside of just here, that weren't interested in coming. And if you don't, you're going to be swept away. Remember what Abraham said to God? Surely you're a righteous God. You will not sweep away the righteous with the wicked. And now the angels are saying, if you don't leave, I mean, you're being warned here, if you don't leave, then the consequences are yours. You'll be swept away. And so what does Lot do? He hesitated. He hesitated. Somebody turn to Psalm 119, read verse 60 real quick. I think that this is a a good passage to remember with regard to Lot's actions here? Who has Psalm 119 is really easy to find. Verse 60 and the 173 verses, maybe not so much. Okay, David?
I made haste and did not delay to keep your commandments.
Okay, I made haste and did not delay. I did not hesitate to keep your commandments. But listen, I can't, this whole way through, you have to be struck with God's mercy. Because he's merciful even to those who are hesitating. So what did the angels do? They grabbed Lot's hand, Mrs. Lot, and the other one grabbed 2 daughters, each of them a hand, and took them outside the city and said to do what? Flee for your lives. And don't look back. Don't stop in the plain. Go where? Go to the mountains. Don't forget that. If any of those things happen, you're going to be swept away. So now Lot begins to bargain with them. And listen, he begins with such nice words of deference. Lords, which is the Hebrew Adonai, I'm your servant. I appreciate all that you've done for me and sparing my life. But, so that's a good learned lesson. If somebody starts off with a lot of flattery, there's going to be a 3-letter conjunction that's going to come up right after that, and it's but. And so what does he say? Okay, I don't have enough time to get to the mountains. Let me go where?
The city nearby.
What kind of city? It's a very small city. In fact, it's such a small city, it really shouldn't even be in your notice as far as the judgment that you're going to be making on these places. And then I can get there, and then my life can be spared. And so we have one angel that responds to that, and what does he say?
Grant you this favor also.
Okay, so go there. Go to Zoar, or to Bela. It's going to be called Zoar after this. Zoar means small. It means insignificant. And that's Lot's description of it. So let me stop here real quick and have you think. The number of righteous that God said he would need in order to spare the city would be how many? 10. How many are going to be entering Zoar?
4.
At best. That's if Mrs. Lot makes it all the way there.
That's assuming they're all righteous.
Yes, well, I assume that they all are. The angels all spared them. But that's 4 or 3 is a lot less than 10. And I am confident Zoar is just as wicked as Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboim and Admah. So let's see if I want this here. Okay, this is the one that I wanted. By the way, what he has here in these little things right here, and that one there came right out of the ground right there. Those are sulfur balls. There's millions of them all over the place here in this part of the land. And so what he did in the next slide is he took this sulfur ball and this one here and this one here and this one here, and he lit them on fire. Okay, and so they represent Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. And this one here that's not burning is Zoar. And that's how they line up geographically too with each other. God didn't destroy Zoar, still there. The place where it was is still there. And you're going to read about it further on in the scriptures. All of these the archaeological sites that they found with all of these is total destruction. And then there's a whole layer of ash, of black ash, where that cities completely were destroyed. And I've got another passage here. I'm sure I'm getting ahead of my notes here. So let's go on to, let me go back here. I can't do that. I'll just leave that there. That's good. Question 7, describe the destruction in verses 23 through 26. By the time Lot reached Zoar, what time is it? So the sun has risen. So that's just a few hours from when he left till when he's here. And which would tell us that Zoar is not far from Sodom. Okay, in fact, he asked to go there because it was nearby and close. Once they arrived, the judgment began. And God rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of heaven. And I got my slides mixed up. That's the sulfur balls that come, so I'm going to go back through there again. I showed you those once before. And he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in those cities and also the vegetation of the land. And the archaeological evidence is that they were burned and they were never lived in again. Those cities were never occupied. Somebody turn to Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 18. I'm going to have to hurry. Who has it?
Jeremiah 14?
Jeremiah. I turned the page. 49:18. Okay, go ahead, Lee.
Like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah with its neighbors, said the Lord, no one will live there, nor will any one of mankind reside in it.
Okay, so from then on, and with Sodom and Gomorrah and her cities, those other cities there, nobody was going to live there. So what do we learn in verse 26? What tragedy happened in verse 26? Okay, so Lot's wife looked back, which was the very thing they were told not to do, and she became a salt pillar. I don't know what that means. I don't know how it happened. Did she refuse to go into the city? Was she dragging along and hesitating behind? Jesus says in Luke 17, verse 32 and 33, to do what? Remember Lot's wife. And the context of that statement is, let me go over there. Whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will preserve it. And so she's looking back, apparently longing for the life she had, maybe her daughters back there, whatever it was, whatever her motive was for looking back doesn't really matter. She did what God instructed her not to do. So what's significant in verses 27 through 29? Let me just keep going here. And if you have questions, you can ask me. So Abraham gets up early in the morning. Why? Yeah, he's anxious. He wants to know, were there 10 righteous people found? How's Lot? What's happening with that? And so he goes right back to the spot where he was talking to Yahweh the day before. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and what does he see? Thick smoke, like it's coming out of a furnace or out of a kiln. By the way, that word for kiln or furnace there is only found one other place, and that's in Exodus chapter 19 and verse 18 when the Israelites come to Sinai. And the smoke is coming out of Sinai, which is kind of interesting. In this case, in Sodom and Gomorrah, it's a sign of judgment. In the Exodus, it's a sign of God's presence. And depending on what your attitude is toward God, it's either going to be judgment or something about his presence. So it says, but in God's judgment, he remembered Abraham. Just like he had remembered Noah in chapter 8 and verse 1. And God spared Lot for Abraham's sake. And the archaeological evidence is again that those 4 cities, well, that's not the one I wanted. So, let me get where my... So this is where the Oaks of Moriah are right about here. So he's looking down into this area and he can see the smoke rising out of there. And Every place was burning, again, except Zoar is not. So the last section, which we won't have to take a lot of time with, is what happened between Lot and his daughters. Where did Lot and his daughters end up going?
They still have to go on mountains.
To the mountains where he was told to go first. And I don't know how long he was in Zoar. But he left Zoar because he was afraid. And I don't know what caused the fear. Listen, if he gets to Zoar, and Zoar was just as wicked as Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboim, and what might Lot think is going to happen to Zoar? It's going to be destroyed. And where's the safest place to go? Is where the angels told him to go in the first place, is to the mountains. And so they head off into the mountains, and they're at a cave. And the story of the daughters is that they think the whole world has been destroyed. Well, that's a pack of lies. Where did they just leave? They left Zoar. There were people there. Okay? And I'm not the originator of this, but I like somebody called Zoar Smallville, because it's a small city, and I like Smallville. So for fear they moved to the mountains, the two daughters concoct a plan to further the seed of their father, and this kind of gets back to Noah and the Ham and get their father drunk and do sinful things. Apparently, the daughters were influenced, as Ross pointed out a minute ago, by the morals of Sodom, and they carry this out on successive nights. They get Lot drunk, they sleep with him, he isn't aware of what's going on. And the next night, the younger daughter sleeps with him, same result. And the last question, verses 37 and 38, what are the nations that resulted from this? Okay, so Moab is the son of the older daughter by Lot, and they became the Moabites. And the younger daughter named her son Beth-Ami, and they became the Ammonites. And you have people like Hannah and Elizabeth, and who are barren their whole lives, are righteous people. And yet there's sometimes that these wicked women are impregnated the very first time with sons. And the Moabites and the Ammonites, just like the Edomites, the Israelites were not allowed to conquer them when they came into the land. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verses 18 and 19 says you avoid them. And so this is the map, the last map that I had. You can see where the Edomites are, you can see where Moab is, and there's this kind of a empty space here, and then you have the Ammonites up here in the north. They were all of three of these were thorns in the side of the Israelites, even later on. This will be the last passage we'll go to, Nehemiah chapter 13. So Nehemiah was written in the post-exile period, so they've been to Babylon, they've come back, and in Nehemiah chapter 13 and verse 23, we read, "Moreover, in those days I saw the men of Judah who had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab," and that's when the problem started having, because they're mixing the race. Okay. Any questions? See, I can put it in high gear when I need to, Debbie McVicker.
Dan?
Yes.
I guess back to the comment I made earlier about maybe Lot was the only righteous one. The only reason I say that is because the angels only really interact with him. And when they ask, is there anybody else that is related to you that you want to save? It wasn't, are there any of the righteous that you know of?
Right.
It's, do you have any son-in-laws or any relatives? And
Right.
I don't know. I can't say one way or the other because I don't know.
Right.
But it almost appears to me that they're saving Lot, and then the others benefit from Lot's salvation. At least
Right.
morally.
And you may be right. Listen, if I'm Lot, guess where I'm headed?
Abraham?
I'm going to the oaks of Moriah. I want to be with Abraham. I'm not going to stick in a cave. But that's just me. And I've read the whole story, so I figure I know how it would come out if I went there. But so next week will be chapter 20, and Abraham and Abimelech. Yes, Tim.
And sulfur balls is not just a crop there or anything.
No.
This is salt, the sulfur that was rained down,
Right.
fire and everything. And guess what? It landed in the water, and so it didn't burn up and everything. And then as the water has receded, it has exposed
Right.
all of these
Right.
in the ground from guess what? Back then.
That event. And the other thing that he did is he lit a sulfur ball and dropped it in the water, and it's burning, and what did it do? You remember? Floats. It comes back to the surface. But then it could be blown by the wind back out on the shore. So, fascinating stuff. I hope you enjoyed it.
The one thing I also wonder is how big the salt pillar was.
Yeah.
Because, every child book makes it seem like it's this big thing, but for all we know, it's like the size of a salt shaker.
Right.
It's just crazy to think
Right.
what size it is.
Right. Well, and they did a movie about Sodom and Gomorrah, and the salt pillar looked like a statue of a woman. And there's all kinds of salt pillars around there too, but it's interesting. All right, thank you very much.